C++ provides the programmer with a powerful tool called Abstract Data Types, or ADT, not to be confused with the home security company. Abstract data types are created by the programmer, and they consist of one or many primitive data types. They are different from classes since they do not include any function definitions. They only group data items. This is really useful when we want to group the data together. The abstraction allows us to create a general model of something. For example, an employee structured data type might have an employee name, an identifier, an hourly wage, a date of birth, and a mailing address. Once we create this data structure, we can create instances of the employee data type. We can also use this data type in an array. Things to remember. To access data members, use the dot operator. To compare two data structure instances, we must compare each piece of data separately. Finally, we can initialize a structure when we create it. In this program, we're going to create a data structure of an employee. We will ask the user how many employees they have, and then create an array of employees and write a loop to ask the user to enter the information. Once we have all the information, we'll print it back out again. As you can see, we have two struct items already listed here, address and date of birth. I split them out from the employee struct. So the address struct has the house number, the street name, the city, state, and zip code. The date of birth has the month, day, and year. Okay, I'm going to scroll down to the employee structured data type now. You can see by breaking out the address and the date of birth into their own structs, it makes the employee struct a lot simpler. It has the first name, the last name, a unique identifier, an hourly wage, and then the home address and the date of birth. We have to define our structured data first before we actually try and use that in the main part of our program. I've also added a prototype that will call to print the employee information. So you'll see on line 30, void print EEs, and I'm passing it an array of the new data type employee, and I'm giving it the size of the array in the int variable. In the main part of our program, the first thing I need to do is define a variable to hold the number of employees. I'll ask the user how many employees they have. I'll read that number into my numEmployees variable. I'm going to create an array of type employee. Employees is the name of the array, and then in brackets I specify a constant value for the number of employees. Then I have a loop that's going to be used to ask for the data for each employee. I use a count-controlled loop, which is a for loop. Remember, we use a for loop when we know how many times we want to execute the loop. I know how many employees there are. I ask the user to tell me ahead of time. So we have for int I equals 0, that's our initialization, I less than number of employees, that's the condition, and I plus plus. Each time through this for loop, I'm going to ask the user to enter in the first name, and I'm going to read that name directly into my array at position I. Notice the use of the dot operator, cin employees bracket I bracket dot first name. I mentioned earlier when we're using a struct, we have to use the dot operator to access the data members directly. Next, I ask for the last name, and I put that into employees bracket I bracket dot last name. This process continues for the employee number, the hourly wage, the house number. Now, let's take a closer look at the house number. Remember our address had its own struct? So when I want to access the data members that are not only in the employee struct, so I have employees bracket I bracket, then I need to go and look at the struct that says home address, and then from there I can get to the house number. So I'm going to read whatever number they gave me into the house number. Right below that, I have something that we haven't seen before, a cin.ignore. When we do the cout house number, we always leave that \n out in the buffer. That's an n-line symbol. If I didn't use the cin.ignore, when I tried to read the street name in the next line, I would actually read the n-line symbol from the previous cout statement. So I need to tell the computer to read the number of the house and put it into housenum, ignore the n-line symbol, because the user will hit enter, and then read in the street name. Then I have cin.getLine. This is another new item here, the getLine, rather than just the cin. The getLine allows me to read in a string that might have spaces in it. For the street name, they might want to put main space street. If I just do cin, it will only read until it hits the first white space character, which in that case is a space. The cin.getLine allows me to read until I get to the point where the user hit enter. So cin.getLine, employees bracket I bracket dot home address dot street name reads whatever the user typed in until it hits an end line symbol, and it allows them to type in up to 30 characters. Next is the city, then the state, then the zip code. Then again, when I get to the date of birth, I have to use employees.dob.month. If I scroll back up, we can just take a quick look here, and you'll see here are the two variables that I created that are of type address, home address, and date of birth, DOB. Finally, I call the printEase function, and I pass it the employees array and the number of employees. In this function at the bottom, we go through the entire loop printing out the information about the employees, the first name, the last name, the address, the hourly wage, and the date of birth. I did add one more option at the bottom that allows me to evaluate the employee's date of birth month, and I'm going to change it from a numeric month to a word. So I'm using a switch statement. It's a type of if statement, a type of decision process. It says switch employees month. If it's a 1, print January, 2, February, all the way down to 12 for December. At the very bottom, I print out the day and the year. Let's run this program and take a look. How many employees do I have? Let's go with 2. The first name, Peg. The last name, Smith. The employee ID. The hourly wage. The house number. And the street. So I'm going to put in a street that has spaces. Now, the computer will read in the spaces, and it won't stop until it hits the end line symbol when I hit enter. So now I can enter in the city and the state. And finally, the zip code. The birthday, it's going to ask for the month, day, and year. So we'll put in 6/26/1956. Since there's more than one employee, it's going to start to ask me for the second employee's information. So this one will be Scott Johnson. His employee ID is 54321. His hourly wage is $8.75. House number, street. This time when I hit enter, it called the print method for my 2 records that I added for my employees. So Peg Smith lives at 123 Pleasant View Drive, Anywhere, PA, 12345. She makes $7.75 an hour. Her date of birth is June 26, 1956, and you can see Scott Johnson's information as well. Data structures are nice because it allows us to combine multiple data types into one. So we can include a string and a number and a double, put it into one data type, in this case, employee.